This week on Yo Quiero Dinero. I think that's one of the reasons why people shy away from like scaling to seven figures because they're not actually sure what kind of infrastructure you need and what it actually takes to reach those levels.
When it comes to scaling and the fears around scaling is a lot of women of color will then do the jump to finally hit six figures, quit their job, finally have a six-figure business, then they'll stay.
Mm.
Then they'll stay there. And it's the same work all over again. So one of the things I first was telling myself, and then I have to tell my clients is, what if staying small is racist?
Dielle, welcome back to the show. I'm so excited to have you here because you are always one of these people that just leaves us hella inspired. I've been in your energy both in person and virtually. And it's really refreshing to hear, especially women of color, just talk about making money unapologetically. And you're definitely one of those folks in our community who does that. So, for people who have not encountered you for whatever godforsaken reason, let us know who you are and what you do. And we're actually going to link DL's original episode in the episode show notes so you can hear more of her story.
Yes, so I'm so excited to be here, and thank you for everything that you do. I know so many people in my community also listen to your podcast. They love following you on Threads. I get all the updates on Threads, so thank you for your work as well. And so, my name is Dielle Charon. I am a sales coach. I'm also the founder of For the 23%. 23% of business owners are women of color, and we are trying to grow that number. And so, we do business coaching, sales coaching, and host live events for women of color entrepreneurs.
I love that. Now, if you go back and listen to DL's original episode, you will learn that she was a social worker. So this was not the original plan to be out here helping women of color learn how to make a lot of money in their businesses. So DL, give us kind of a recap of where you realized that your career was not going to lead you down the path of financial freedom, and then how you were introduced to the coaching space.
Yes. And so I always say, like, I had a racist 9 to 5 job. And I know that's a very controversial statement, especially in this economy right now, where I'm sure a lot of your listeners and a lot of people right now are saying like hunker down, stay in your actual 9 to 5 job, and they were saying that same advice in the pandemic. So I started my business in 2018, the end of 2018, and then really in 2019, I kind of got a little bit of momentum, not enough to be a full-time entrepreneur, but a little bit of momentum. And I was juggling a 9 to 5 and I was a social worker. I was making $2,500 a month, working about 40 to 50 hours a week.
Wow.
And then on top of that, I had a 3 hour bus commute every single day because I don't know if you know this, but when it comes to working at a university, they often will pay, you have to pay for your parking.
Mm,
And it was $200 out of my already very, very small check.
wow.
And I was like, okay, but the bus is free. And so I said, okay, well, I'm taking the bus because I can't afford $200. So I traded 3 hours out of my day for this really long commute. And I live in North Carolina, the sticks. Like, that's why it took so long. And so I didn't have any time. I didn't have any experience. I was a social worker. I never took a business class a day in my life. But literally it was just the universe. It was fate. Somebody sent me a podcast episode. They were like, I think you would be a good coach. Like, you're a social worker. I think you would be a great life coach. And I was like, what's a podcast? Like, why isn't there like a video attached to this? Like, what is this thing? And then look at us now, right? All we do is
Right.
I love podcasting now. And so I listened to that podcast, and that's how I was introduced to the coaching industry. So I first was a life coach, and you can still, if you Google my name, it'll still pop up my branding of the Busy Girls Club. And I was just trying to help ambitious women find more time. And then eventually people said, oh, I was, growing a little bit of a life coaching practice on the side. And people were like, how are you doing this? And then eventually I started my own business coaching business where I was helping people just start side hustles. And then I made six figures. People want to know how I made six figures. And then I made seven figures. And I've been making seven figures ever since and helping other women of color do the same. And like I said, we also have hosted amazing live events, which you have spoken at. And I think too, it's super powerful when women of color have come together. I know you've done your own events as well and have felt that power in the room.
Yeah. No, it's absolutely transformative. There is something to be said about getting in a room full of people where you don't feel like you're the oddball out, which I think for oftentimes, if you are the only entrepreneur in your immediate circle, it can feel very isolating because you just don't have people around you who A, get what you're doing, B, support what you're doing, or can even offer like guidance and advice. And so I think that's why it's so important for you have to kind of curate the environment that you want to be in if you don't have access to like a roster of entrepreneurs, which most of us just don't when we're starting out.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think just seeing, as soon as you walk in, the safety that you feel, seeing other people who look like you is something that we don't get a lot of opportunities of.
Yeah, no, it's true. And unfortunately, a lot of the business coaching events in the world today are still very like white male centric, right? And so I think that's why it's even more important when we do have these opportunities to be in rooms and spaces that were specifically created for us to support these kinds of events if we want to see more of them. So I definitely recommend, checking out everything that Dielle has going on. Join her newsletter, follow her on social. We'll have all those links in the episode show notes. All right. So, Dielle, I want to know, because I speak to obviously a lot of people in the aspiring entrepreneurship space. And one of the key questions that I encounter often is like, how do I turn my day job skills or even like my hobbies into an actual business, right? So, for example, like a social worker, you made the connection that you could become a coach. What are maybe a couple different examples of like common careers that folks come to you with that they're just like, well, I don't know how to get paid more as a teacher or like as a nurse, because we typically think that these like careers have caps on them. And that's the beauty of entrepreneurship. There really is no income limit, but you have to kind of reorient how you think about your skills and their value, right?
Yes, 100%. And so many different ways. I'm going to give a very tried and true like example, and then I'm going to give some more non-traditional ones. So I would say when it came to like starting my own business, I think coaching can work for really any career. And so I was working with someone and she was a project manager and she was like, DL, how could I turn this into a coaching business? I said, you know a lot about organization. You know a lot about timelines and deadlines. I said, you could be a time management coach. You could be an organization coach. You could help people be more organized in their life and in their jobs and with their family schedules. And she was like, oh my gosh, I never even would have considered that. A lot of accountants become money coaches. And so there is totally a parallel where whatever you're doing in your job, you can teach and mentor other people to do in a coaching business. Or similar to what you did, start a blog. You can start a blog, you can start a podcast, exactly what you did, where you can have more of the conversations that you're having in your 9-to-5 job. What I say too is you typically can do what you're doing in your 9-to-5 job in a business and just get paid a lot more to do it.
Yeah.
Like you could get you could do the same thing, but get paid so much more. So I think that's like the tried and true way is you could turn anything. I was working with an engineer and she was like, DL, okay, I'm an engineer. No one wants to learn. You were an engineer?
Yes, ma'am. 15 years.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that. I thought you worked in STEM. I didn't know it was engineer.
Yeah.
I thought maybe it was another STEM field. Yeah. I think too, if you had, I know money was your passion. And so like, that's kind of how you got started. But if you're an engineer, I said, well, you're really good at math. Can you start like a math tutoring business? And she was like, I didn't even think of that. And so we might have to be a little non-traditional. We might have to be a little creative, but you can totally do that. And I think for me, one of the very first things that I did while I was in college and while I was getting my master's was my mom was a Montessori teacher. She was a teacher my whole life. She would always, if we had the free from the summer, she would just drag me into her school and I would be helping out with the kids. It's super natural for me. So I started my own nanny agency, like as just something on the side while I was in school. So we all have that. Is it hair? Can you cook? Can you it could be graphic design. Can you put together graphics for people's presentations? There's so many things that we have skills in and we're just not optimizing them and we're not selling them on our own.
Yeah. I absolutely agree. And I think there's a lot of like underrated value in soft skills, if you will. So like the ability to speak in public, the ability to think critically, to dissect a problem and like reverse engineer the solution, right? As an engineer, like I was literally trained on how to fix things. So when I think about like how I'm going to launch an offer now in my business, I think about first, what is the problem that I'm solving? And then like, how do I reverse engineer the solution, with the skills that I have. And if I have a deficit in some skills that I would need to fix that problem, what else do I need to learn? Do I need to sign up for a coaching program? Do I need to take a certification? Blah, 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 right? There's always opportunities for you to use the skills that you have both in your professional life and also in your personal life to create some high ticket offer that can really give someone a transformation that is, valuable enough for them to give you a significant amount of money for.
Yeah. Yeah. And people are always surprised. Like I remember my hairdresser, she was like, I have a 6-figure hair business, but people want to learn that deal. I'm like, are you kidding me? Of course people want to learn how to do that.
Right.
Like, I feel like instead of going back to school to go get a master's or something, people are instead hiring coaches to be like, just teach me what you did.
Yeah.
And again, I know coach can be seen as like a dirty word. You could be a consultant, you could be a mentor, or again, you could just have a blog and be paid through your blog traffic.
Yeah.
And so where can you just be in the info space? Like we're just booming and growing right now.
Absolutely. Okay, so we know the stats around women of color owned businesses specifically, and the majority of them never actually hit 6 figures in annual revenue. First off, why do you think that is? And what is it that separates folks who are, 6-figure business earners versus ones who are struggling to get there?
So many things. Where do I even begin? I think for a lot of us, if a woman of color business owner is not hitting 6 figures, a lot of it has to do with they cannot leave their 9-to-5 job. They cannot do the mindset work to become a full-time entrepreneur, so they're capped on time. And so I think you made a lot of money while working your 9-to-5 job. I made a lot of money in my business while also working my 9-to-5 job. So I made $300,000 in my coaching business before I quit.
Wow.
I could have quit a long time ago. I was scared. I was so afraid. So I think number one, like we're trained that our safety, our financial safety comes from 9-to-5 jobs. And I talk about this when I do my free class, I have a slide that people always screenshot. It says, the job isn't amazing, you are. Like we think the job gives us so much safety and it provides so much. And there's a daycare on site and they're reimbursing my therapy and I get all these benefits from it. And I'm so glad the companies are now doing that. Was not doing that back in the day for me. I'm sure it wasn't doing it for you either. I'm glad all that's happening, but the job isn't amazing, you are. They pay you because you have a gift. And imagine if you put that gift and that skill set into your own company. So I think one of the main reasons is we're still so emotionally and financially tied to that 9-to-5 paycheck is the reason why women of color business owners don't work more. I think the second thing is all of our thoughts and feelings around sales. We have been told that, especially women of color, that we need to be independent. We need to have our own money. We need to have our own processes. We need to never ask or beg anyone to do anything for us. And so when we realize in business that we have to quote unquote sell, we're like, oh my God, like, I don't want to do that. When I always say, you sold yourself into a 9-to-5. You went through how many rounds of interviews? You had to apply and you had to write the copy of your resume. Like you had to do all of that to get your current job. And why can't you do that for your own business?
Yeah.
And so it's just realizing all the things that we villainize or we're afraid of. We've already done for a 9-to-5 job, but where could we do it for ourselves? So I would say the second piece is sales. And then the third piece I think is just visibility. Like we're afraid to get out there. We're afraid to get on podcasts. We're afraid to maybe host our own workshop at a library. Like just put ourselves out there. And then by proxy of that, we might fail. Like no one might come to our free class or no one might listen to the first couple of episodes. And I think that fear could be very paralyzing for people and they don't even want to start.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I've encountered the mindset stuff is like typically the hardest thing for people to overcome when it comes to showing up, marketing yourself, raising your prices. And I think also a lot of that fear tends to come from just not knowing what the solutions are, especially when we talk about like, what are the benefits that you're giving up from a 9-to-5 job? Once I realized like, wait, I can create my own 401k. Wait a minute, I can buy my own insurance and now it's a business expense. Like I can take business conference trips and now it's a deductible expense on my taxes. Like there's so many benefits to entrepreneurship, but if we don't know and we don't know how to like, create our own benefits package so that we can walk away confidently from our jobs and not have to be shackled by those golden handcuffs that so often keep us in these positions. When you're empowered, you can make really radical decisions. And so I think it's just so important. Know what your freaking options are. Like stop being the first no. There's enough people in the world who are out here trying to tell you no. Don't be that person for yourself.
Yeah. Exactly. And you will create a yes. I always say, like, I'm like the most normal person ever. Like, I'm a social worker. Like, I'm not fancy, right? Like, I'm social. I live in North Carolina. I have a little farmhouse. I got a garden out back. I'm just out there gardening. Like, no one would know I would have $1 million business. But I think, like, that's the beauty of it. Like, it really is for anyone.
Yeah.
Like, it really, truly is for anyone. And so, like, you don't have to, I'm also, I say this all the time, like, as a Black woman, like, I wear my natural hair. Like, you don't have to be anybody that you think you need to be. And like, the internet will accept you more than you think they will, but you do have to be your first yes, and you
Yeah.
do have to go first.
Yeah, and I think it's also entrepreneurship for me has been like a self-discovery process where I was able to learn how to shed all of those identities and masks that I had to wear in corporate, right? So the way that you present yourself as a woman of color, what professional means, right? Like all of my businesses are centered around my Latina identity in a way that like I could never center my corporate identity around that. And so I think that's like one of the beauties of it is like it's a place where you can rediscover your voice and then use that voice to help other people. And the more authentic that you show up, the more that people can connect with you because you are being your most fully expressed self. I think that inevitably leads to you finding your people and finding your success in entrepreneurship in a way that we just can't in a racist ass job.
Exactly. And and I'm sure you feel the same. Like, it's changed my life.
Yeah.
Like, we do it for the money, we do it to not clock in, but I have a completely different life. It's required me to up level and accept myself in ways I've never would have if I was still working in a 9 to 5 job.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about making that leap from 6 to 7 figures, right? Because there is a different strategy, if you will, that is required for that. I think what intimidates a lot of people initially about that thought process is, do I need to have like 30 people working for me in order to have a 6 figure business or a 7 figure business? Because I don't necessarily want to create this big ass company that I escaped from. I want to have some freedom and autonomy. I don't necessarily want all the pressure of like all these people's livelihoods on my success, right? And so I think that's one of the reasons why people shy away from like scaling to 7 figures, because they're not actually sure what kind of infrastructure you need and what it actually takes to reach those levels. So in your experience, what does that look like for you?
Yes, such good question. So I would say first that you could do it with a small team. So I hit my first 7 figures back in 2022, and then I've been doing it every year since. And I just had three main people on my team. I had an VA helping me with the back end and scheduling emails and putting out content for me. I had someone helping me with my clients, a coaching assistant, and then I had a podcast editor. That was it. And I was able to do it with just those people. And so I think when you charge high ticket, that allows for a little bit more flexibility because you can work with a small amount of people and make more money. And so 100% it could be done on a very small, scalable team. And then the amazing thing about that is, especially when we talk about money, is you get to like then keep some of that profit and invest it in the stock market. You can then take care of your family for it. You can then pay down debt. You then have cash and leverage to do other things financially. I would say too, one of the things, again, not to be controversial again, but one of the things I say all the time when it comes to scaling and the fears around scaling is a lot of women of color will then do the jump to finally hit 6 figures, quit their job, finally have a 6 figure business, then they'll stay.
Mm.
Then they'll stay there. And it's the same work all over again, right? Where they're like, okay, am I going to do the visibility work? I don't want to like mess up a good thing. I might have to do some different strategies, but I don't want to mess up what I have and then go back into a 9 to 5 job. And so one of the things I first was telling myself, and then I have to tell my clients is, what if staying small is racist? Why do all of these big white male companies get to scale, right? Why do they get to grow? They get to be millionaires, but we don't.
Mm.
We want to stay small.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that's totally like white supremacy, because can you imagine if women of color had $1 million, $1 billion companies? We would literally just change our communities one after the other in so many different ways. It's powerful when we have that access to that much cash,
Yeah.
and it's scary. And so I think too, we've been told this narrative to just stay small and just say little, when I'm like, what if that isn't the best thing for us, our families, and our community?
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. And especially because we are trying to make up for lost time, right? And
Yeah.
so when you are the first generation wealth builder of your family, you are trying to undo centuries of oppression, of, racism, of economic warfare that's been placed on communities. And so, like, we have a responsibility to not stay small and to be like real generational cycle breakers. And especially if you find yourself in a very common situation that many people of color find themselves, where they're trying to extend financial support not only to themselves but maybe to elders or to their children. Y'all, that requires a lot of money. And so if we really want to set up the future for success, we have to have the working capital to do that. It is in our best interest to give from places of abundance so that we don't find ourselves in the same cycle of struggle that we tried to work so hard to escape.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I love what you said. Like, we're making up for lost time. I'm curious, like, what was the mindset that helped you grow?
I think it was it was a very gradual process, and just like understanding the true power that I had to literally create money with my thoughts and with, my skills. And every time that you're able to do that, it just unlocks this like confidence in you that is like, oh shit, like I actually don't have to say things anymore like, well, we can't afford that, or that's for other people. When you realize it really is just a matter of you turning on a switch and saying, well, I need to make X amount of money because I want to do this thing. Like a great example recently was I wanted to buy a house last year and I needed to come up with $50,000 in like less than 3 months. And I'm like, well, how are we going to do this? And then it's literally like looking at what are the skills I have? How can I package them? What can I put together? And I ended up doing it in 2 weeks and was able to buy my dream home. And like shit like that changes your DNA. You literally realize like I'm fucking unstoppable. The only thing that is in my way is me. And so I think it's just for most of us, you need that first vote of confidence by doing the scary shit, putting yourself out there, and seeing what you can create. And that just has like this ripple effect on every aspect of your life. Once you stop settling for like what somebody's going to pay you, you stop settling for a lot of other shit like trashy relationships, environments that are sucking the life out of you. Anything and everything just becomes like, I'm not settling for shit in any aspect of my life.
The example you shared, I was like, like became your own bank.
There you go.
Like, you literally became your own resource, and like that amount of self-trust you were able to build with yourself, it changes your DNA. It changes like generations too, because like now you get to pass that down to your family.
It's true. And making money is a skill just like anybody else, like any other skill that you would learn. I think that's one of those things that people think I'm either good at it or I'm not. And it's like, no, y'all, it's actually something you can learn how to do. But you have to give yourself the opportunity to just imagine what is possible.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that has to do with just getting out of the employee mindset where you're like charging X amount of dollars per hour, right? Because I think a lot of new entrepreneurs make that mistake of just trying to translate how they get paid as an employee into how they earn money as a business. Can you explain to us more of kind of just like what that mindset shift looks like and what we actually like? How do we know we're actually charging what we're worth?
Such a great question. I think with employees, like how we're actually like facilitating those transactions is they tell us the rate, right? They say, this is the job offer, this is how much we're willing to pay, and we can negotiate, and that's all fine and dandy. But there is some sort of cap, and eventually you will say no. Like, I remember I tried to negotiate my pay at Duke, and they say we could give you $1,000 more, but like, this is our budget, this is our cap, which
Wow.
was like insane. Yeah. And so I think it's a completely different spin, especially for women of color, when we then get to charge what we want, and we then get to like put that out there. And so I always say, like, charge based off of your transformation and your skill level. So I used to charge $1,000 for 3 months of coaching, which that was like life-changing money for me at the time. Like, that was huge amounts of money, and people paid it left and right. And that's like just industry standard, and also just what people were paying for coaching at the time given my niche. But you could start there and then raise your prices as your demand raises too. And so I always say you can make six figures as a coach very easily and also ethically as well, where you have happy clients that feel like they were really able to get an impact from your work. You're not, again, just taking people's money for the sake of taking it, but you're able to charge for a rate where you're like, okay, if I teach my clients this amazing skill, if I teach them money coaching, if I teach them health coaching, if I teach them career coaching, if I teach them whatever, their life is going to be impacted in these 3 to 5 ways. And then what is worth that transformation when we're able to accomplish those goals? And then that's what you would charge. And so I think too, when people are like, okay, well, I'm so afraid to say the price on a sales call, I'm so afraid to put my prices up, on my website. You would be surprised. Some people will not invest in you because of your price. It might be too low. Like, I remember I was looking for this particular health coach in a certain modality, and I saw the price was like $2,000. I was like, that's way too, like, her competition is doing way higher than that. And so it gave me like pause. It gave me a little bit of red flags. And so there is, like, again, I say you could start off with $1,000 for 3 months of coaching. That's kind of industry standard. A lot of people will tell you that. But then you can also go up based off of your skill level and experience as well.
Yeah. I love that advice. And I think it's important for us to just realize that, like, a lot of the blockage that you might have around your pricing is just because you're not really clear on, like, what problem you're solving with people and what amount of transformation you're able to offer, right? And so if you need to take a couple of, like, beta clients to test things out before you feel confident in, like, what you can do, that is fine. That should be something that you do in exchange for, like, testimonials, feedback, just so that you can refine that offer, so you can be, like, very confident once you do start charging for services. Because it is an exercise in self-trust too, just knowing that you have the skills to change somebody's life. You want to prove that to yourself. Let's talk about sales. So you mentioned ethics, right? And one of the things that drives me fucking batshit crazy that I hear women of color specifically say is like, oh my God, but I can't charge that much because we can't afford it. What are your thoughts? And how do we address that limiting belief?
Is the we, like, my community
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. So many thoughts on this as well. I'll start off with this example. So I was coaching a health coach, and she wanted to niche in Black women. She was like, I have specific modalities for Black women. And she was like a maternal coach, like helping them make sure they get through the childbearing process, which is like, oh my God, like life-changing work she was doing. And she was like, but I don't think they can pay. And I looked at her and I was like, Black women are the most educated group of people in the country. Like, they are literally doctors and lawyers, and they don't have people in their corner from a health perspective. Like, what do you mean? And she didn't even know the stats of that. She was like, what they are? I was like, oh yeah. And so I always say, one of the things I tell my clients is, like, tell the truth. Like, is it true that your audience and your clients can't afford it? For some communities, maybe yes, versus some communities, no. But there's a few different ways I like to handle this. I always say there is somebody who's willing to pay your prices. And if it's not you, then it's going to be on the opposite end of the spectrum, right? So I was telling this client, I'm like, if they don't pay for you, then they're just going to pay for a hospital bill. They're going to pay regardless, and it's not going to be proactive, preventative, and actually helpful. They're going to have to go into the system that's very harmful because you didn't go and put out your choice and your services and your option for other people. So it's either going to be you or a more harmful option for your community. And also, one of my philosophies with this is get out of your client's wallet. And so,
stop pocket watching, y'all.
No, I'm serious. Like, I envision when we're like, okay, they can't afford it. This is what you're actually doing when you say that. You think of, Sally, your ideal client. You automatically know how much they make, know this, know that. You don't know, but you're just, like, projecting and assuming, and you're in their wallet. Like, I want you to imagine, like, actually fiddling through their wallet and checking their bank account. You have no idea.
I really don't.
You have no idea too. And people, even if we were to even get a little bit more nuanced, people are like, oh, I don't want them to put it on a credit card. And I'm like, that's none of your business. And also, we have to stop, like, this idea and this narrative that If I make money, that means I'm going to hurt somebody else.
Mm,
We have to stop with that narrative. If you're paid, only good things happen when women of color make money. Only good things happen. You're delivering an amazing service, an amazing opportunity, even if it's a $22 ebook, right? Like,
yeah.
even if it's something like that. I just bought like a $22 vegan ebook because I want to be more plant based. That thing changed my life. I've been cooking up a storm, right? It was like, oh my God. And so, even if it's a $22 ebook, where can you still like believe that this is powerful and that you're not harming somebody just because you were paid?
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, I love that perspective because I think a lot of us have internalized that like we are part of the problem if we like, use quote unquote capitalist tools in order to create expansion for ourselves. And I always like to think of it like this. Exploitation is a part of the capitalist system, right? But a big reason why exploitation is pervasive in our system is because people like us don't have control of the system. If you want to change the system, you actually have to be at the top. And how do you get to the top of a capitalist system? You have to have money because money is power, right? So if we are creating companies that are 6, 7, 8-figure businesses, we can be proactive about changing the culture around what employment and corporate America looks like. We can be the people who are providing equitable benefits, paid parental leave, maternity leave, healthcare, all that stuff to the people that we employ. We can focus on diverse hiring practices. We can literally dismantle the system from within. But if you don't have the fucking power because you don't have the money, then all you can do is bitch and complain. Okay. So it's like, what are we going to do? Are we going to become part of the problem and just like continue to let others exploit us? Or are we going to take our power into our own hands, create these micro systems of economies where then we can literally change things from within? I like to be on the side of, I'm tired of what has been going on and I want to be part of that change. And so I think when you start thinking about what it looks like when we do show up versus when we, limit ourselves, it's really transformational what we can accomplish, especially as a group.
As a collective, yes. And I think too, find examples of people who are doing that, who are business leaders that are women of color, where you're like, wait, they're charging, they do good in the world, and their clients and their communities are happy with the services that they sell.
Yeah.
Like, find examples. I think too, nowadays there's so many people doing such great work for their community and they're charging. So if you want examples, you can go out and find them too.
Absolutely. Okay, so one of the things that people struggle with oftentimes when it comes to sales is like this perception of being sleazy or being annoying or just like, I don't want to be talking about what I'm doing all the time. Is there a way to sell without giving people the ick?
Sure. And I think it's super easy. You just connect it back to value. You always connect it back to value. So rare. I might get it like one every 1,000 clients that I work with, but like it's rare where I see someone like make a post that's like, buy from me, buy from me, buy from me. That's not anybody's Instagram account. That's not anybody's website. That's not anybody's podcast. Like, this podcast is such a great example. Like, hours, thousands of hours of free value is on this show right now. So I think too, you have to love what you do and give it away for free as well. That's like to kind of juxtaposition what we were talking about. The more value you give, the more money you'll make as well. And you could do this in so many different ways. You could create content. You can have a podcast. You can have YouTube. You can also like host workshops, host things in person. Now, so many people are like swinging full back to in person. And then we even just neglect the power of like a coffee chat with someone. Like, I had a coffee chat with like this professional organizer, like organizes people's homes, and she was telling me like, oh, like you should do your closet. Like, blew my mind. Like, do your closet like this. And we forget how powerful one tip could be, and then you can connect that to your offer. Then you could say, and if you would like more, go to my website. If you would like more, send me a message. If you would like more, here's a link to book a sales call with me. And so I think those are the ways that we can make it less sleazy. But I will tell you, in my opinion, there is nothing like seeing a woman of color sell and like reclaiming her financial ownership and financial safety. I love when women of color sell. There's this particular coach. She has like 80,000 followers on Instagram. Like, she's killing it. I don't know what she sells. And I'm always like, I would love to give her money. I would love to support her. And I just literally don't even know what she does. And so I think too, people want to support you and they want to know how they can support you.
Yeah.
And so they're not gonna know unless you say something. I'm curious, like what are your favorite ways to sell without being sleazy?
So I always go from a place of like teaching, like you say, right? Like adding value. Because what I found time and time again, like it doesn't matter how much you tell people like what they need to do. If you give it to them for free, most of the times they don't do it, right? And so there's no such thing as like giving away too many secrets. Because the people that are ready to like take the next step, they will find out how they can work with you. But if you make it easier and literally tell them, you're probably bridging that gap a little bit. And for me, I like to sell from a place of service. Like, I really think to myself, if I don't show up to help people solve this problem, I'm actually contributing to like their continued suffering. Like, how does that make any sense? Right. And so, for somebody who teaches folks how to make money online with their skills, I'm like, I know how much it changed my life. And I have a responsibility to share that, especially with my community of, majority Latinas, because we don't have to be out here taking, scraps from jobs. And we don't have to be out here being subjected to like potentially, toxic relationships or marriages because we don't have financial autonomy. Like there's so many reasons why we need to be empowered financially. And so if I can be a part of creating the solution for somebody and changing somebody's life, that's why I do what I do, right? I could very easily just be like, well, I got my money. I'm ready to walk away off into the sunset. But for me, there's a greater why, and it really is around that mission. And I think when you're very clear on kind of what are the consequences if you don't show up, it becomes much easier to sell because you're taking yourself out of the focus and you're really focusing back on the clients that need you.
One of the things I used to say to piggyback off of that was whenever I figure out X, I'm gonna tell the world.
Yeah.
So like when I was like, when I figure out how to do a sales call, I'm going to tell the world, right? Like, because these things and these skills that we're teaching others, they truly are liberating. I
Yeah,
love that.
absolutely. All right. So for somebody who is thinking about entrepreneurship, is intimidated, might not know where to start, what would your first piece of advice be? Whether that's like, some sort of like mindset exercise they can do, some sort of self-discovery process. Like how can we start to kind of give ourselves permission to show up in this space?
Yeah. So I think the first question that's again a little controversial you may have not thought about is how are you already an entrepreneur?
Mm,
Right? Like how have you already like had new ideas but you just haven't implemented on them? You also just you've had a side hustle maybe when you were younger or people asked you to do this thing and you might just be doing it for free. Where are you like starting new projects at work and your boss didn't ask you for that but you just got the itch? Where are you already like doing a hobby and you can monetize it? Like so many people are like they're not entrepreneurs or they're not entrepreneurs, they don't have the bone or they don't have like the thing innately in them. But we all are. Like I think about my husband, he's a therapist, he would never call himself an entrepreneur but he literally has his own private practice. Like like I'm like, "Bro, you got your own PLLC, like you literally have you're an entrepreneur," but we just don't call ourselves that. We think it's such like a risky word to use to describe us, but where can you like start to see yourself already as an entrepreneur and that you already were bit by the bug. You wouldn't be listening to a podcast like this if you weren't already bit by the bug.
that's true.
And I that's something that I wish somebody told me sooner because like a lot of us, I'll be like, Teal, you're crazy. You got your master's degree. You got this whole fancy job, even though it don't pay much. Like, what are you doing leaving this? Like, it'll go away. This urge to start a business will go away. It never did. It actually just got louder.
Mm-hmm.
So the sooner you just accept that you already are entrepreneurial, the better it will be. And then the second thing is going back to the beginning of this episode, like where can you look at what skills do I have and what could people want? And then I was going to actually say this while you were talking about it. Get some beta people, get some beta testers. I have a friend who she just texted me over the weekend. She was like, I think I'm going to start a coaching business, DL. I said, she wants to do career coaching. I said, great time to do it. People are having lots of thoughts about their careers. And she was like, I do eventually want to lead them to entrepreneurship as well. And I said, okay, but she wants to help them be paid more while they're still working. I said, help people with the negotiation process and run a few of your coworkers through it.
Yeah.
Like, test out with what you have right now. Test out whatever idea you have.
I love that. So, Dielle, I would love to close out this episode with sort of some aspirational chat, right? So, I know personally, and I know you know as well, the transformative nature of entrepreneurship, but can you take us kind of behind the scenes of like what your life used to look like versus now, and just like how entrepreneurship has changed it?
Sure. I'll share a really personal example. So, entrepreneurship, in my opinion, like physically saved my life
Wow.
with my health. Yeah, like with my literal health. And so in 2022, I was diagnosed with a chronic illness, and the doctors didn't know what was wrong with me, very similar to women of color's experience and conventional healthcare here in the States. They didn't know what was wrong with me. I ended up joining a Facebook group. How did I even know to join a Facebook group? I was an entrepreneur. I didn't even know they existed until I started my own business. And so I joined a Facebook group and I found this integrative medicine woman and she was healing people with the conditions we were having all in this Facebook group because modern medicine wasn't. And she was expensive. She was $250 a session, and I had to see her weekly for 2 years.
Wow.
So you can add that up. It's very expensive treatment, and there was a reason why it was expensive. I don't think she was being exploitive. Like there was the medicine costed a lot. There was reasons, but a chronic illness that a lot of people in that Facebook group were suffering for 20 years. And I got diagnosed when I was 27. And they were struggling with for 20 years. I got healed in 2 years.
Wow.
Because I was able to afford this treatment. I had the flexibility in my schedule to do all these alternative. I went to acupuncture. I did ozone therapy. I did all these like unconventional treatments to heal my body. I also had time to take off, rest when I was in a flare. And I just was like, this was bound to happen, whether I was in a 9-to-5 job or whether I had my own business, because that was just the way my body was rolling at that time. And I just always kept sitting and thinking, like, if I was a social worker, I would have had to quit and go on disability.
Yeah.
Like, I would have had to be on disability, hands down. Like, there was no other way. And I wouldn't be able to afford this treatment. And so a lot of people think entrepreneurship is also optional. I'm like, oh, no, it isn't. You're never going to know a time in your life when you're going to need access to money or you're going to need access to time. And entrepreneurship is the only thing where you will actually have control over both. And so I just kept thanking myself through a very difficult situation. I just kept thanking myself like, DL, you made the right decision 5 years ago and you didn't even know, it was. And so not to get all heavy, but I like, that's the story I've been telling. Like, that's the reality of it. Like, you never know when you're going to thank yourself to be like, I'm so glad I fought for my freedom.
I love that. And I can totally relate in this new journey of motherhood too. You know, a lot of folks are like, oh my God, you're glowing. Like motherhood looks so good on you. And I'm like, ma'am, that's the money. Okay. That is the money that has been able to buy support, has been able to buy space, time, energy, restorative practices, wellness, all the things. Okay. We do not have to accept motherhood being raggedy out here, but the fact of the matter is that requires money. Okay. I've been able to be at home with my daughter. I've been able to hire help. I have been able to still be able to pour into myself, take time that I need. And, you know, so many people don't have that option. And so if you really want to create a life that is full of options, I really do feel, especially in today's world, that entrepreneurship is a must. And maybe it's not something that you do forever. You know, maybe it's a season of life that requires just that more of that space. But I think more of us just need to take the opportunity to see what is possible. And, you know, by following folks like Dielle, I think you'll be inspired to really take your finances to the next level and really see what you can create through the magic of entrepreneurship. So Dielle, I want to thank you for being here on the show. Please let us know where we can find you and how clients can work with you to discover their sellable skills.
Yes, yes. So you could get in touch with us on Instagram. We have two Instagram accounts. One of them is my name, Dielle Charon. That's my personal account. And then we have For the 23%, which is our company account. And then you can also listen to our podcast, the Woman of Color Business Show podcast. And we would love to see you at one of our events. You could go to forthe23%.com and you can get access to all the things we have going. Thank you so much for this really valuable conversation. This would have changed my life if I heard it a few years ago.
Absolutely. We are here doing the work that we needed someone else to be doing back then, and hopefully we can change a lot of lives with what's happening here on the show. So thank you so much for being here. If you want to find out more about Dielle and the work that she does, please make sure to check out the show notes description, and you'll find all the links to her resources and more. Until next time, everybody, stay poderosa.